I'm selling a fake health remedy, and I want a large market. There aren't enough people with the disease I was targeting, so I advertise it for everything, from cancer to autism. But still, my market is only sick people or relatives of sick people. So how do I expand, and how do I keep my customers if they get better? Well, why not tell everyone that they're sick?
You're sick. You have 100 pounds of toxic waste and worms inside you. Buy my dilute bleach and drink it 3 times a day. What's that? You're having stomach pain? Oh, perfect. The bleach works wonders for stomach pain. Have some more. What's that? You think that your intestinal walls are sloughing off and coming out in your stool? No, you idiot. Those are the worms. This is proof you have to keep going.
You see, phony alternative medicine vendors aren't just selling you dirt water or silver or no-touch massages. They're selling you the idea that you're sick. You feel like shit all the time, everyone does. So you're primed to believe you might be sick. There are all sorts of crazy diseases that are super popular to have and die from nowadays. Maybe you have one of those.
You have that cat, maybe you have toxoplasmosis. What about that ethnic food you had the other day? Is it possible it could have had parasites? There's a few bumps on your leg. Maybe you have, turtle pox. It's new, it just spread here from whichever country scares you the most. Modern medicine has failed you, but all of this can be fixed with my special new formulation of some stuff in a cute jar.
They need you to believe that you're sick, because otherwise you don't need them. Just like how Gillette convinced women that it's unclean not to shave their armpits just to expand their market, or how Listerine coined the term halitosis to sell more mouthwash. It's called disease mongering. It's imposing a fictitious disorder on another, if you will. Fictitious disorder imposed on another, or FDIA, is the more hip way to say Munchausen by proxy. Like how all the cool kids now say dissociative identity disorder instead of multiple personality disorder. There's a Wendigoon video that covers MBP and how in most courts of law it's viewed as a description of behavior rather than a mental illness. So you can watch that if you're interested, or if you just want to hear someone say to which a lot. Essentially, the argument is, no one could be found guilty if a doctor comes out and says something like, "Ah yes, the defendant has a classic case of murdering kids disorder, or MKD as we call it in the field." So in this comparison, I'm conceptualizing FDIA, or MBP, as a description of behavior rather than diagnosing corporations with psychological disorders. They are people, after all. So from this viewpoint, it will be pretty clear that the wellness industry fits the description, and they won't stop until they collect all 7 billion proxies. In fact, and this is patently insane, the wellness industry is 4 times bigger than the pharmaceutical industry and comprises 5.3% of global economic output. So everyone who rejects the corporate evils of big pharma and turns to alternative medicine, you're only playing into the hands of the hyper-capitalist wellness industrial complex. Let's cover some of the things to look out for in wellness advertising. A lot of these things follow the principles of advertising in general, which are fucking disgusting. Advertising is a plague, and everyone should have an ad blocker active at all times and skip sponsor segments in order to consume as little propaganda as possible. And like my mom always told me as a kid, for the love of God, mute the commercials. Anyway, wellness peddlers will often refer to their products as clean or natural. This is to imply that other products of the same type are dirty and unnatural if they don't specify that they're clean. Kinda like when you see gluten-free on vegetables or whatever. If it's not explicitly telling you it's clean, it must be dirty. This is an exploitation of the fears of an industrialized world. Because we've polluted so much of the world with so many different chemicals from large-scale manufacturing and irresponsible waste disposal, it's not hard to see why someone might want something natural, but it's a fallacy. Uranium, for example, is natural, but... oh, who am I kidding? There's definitely someone out there selling medicinal uranium. Either way, there's no difference between the action of a chemical that is derived from nature and its synthetic counterpart. Many wellness advertisers like to use scientific-sounding language. This is the modern day, after all, and a lot of people want to believe that what they believe is compatible with accepted science, whether or not it really is. The aim is to appear authoritative, professional, and comparable to mainstream treatments. Even if you're a rational person, even if you have knowledge in the field, you can fall for this with enough repetition of disinformation, due to the illusory truth effect. All they need to do is sound a little bit believable, and they've primed you to be open to suggestion. Celebrities are all fucking insane and completely out of touch. but some people really seem to like these guys. A common tactic of wellness is to either advertise with celebrities and influencers, or to have been made by celebrities, like the appropriately grossly named Goop. Looking into this, it seems that celebrity endorsements work on the implication that the product somehow contributed to their star status, as well as providing more memorable advertisements and sometimes appealing to authority, like in the case of Air Jordans. This works in concert with social media advertising, as that's the main outlet for celebrities to endorse things now, and it's a perfect platform for disinformation. I also got a particularly gauche tip from Wellness Marketing 9 Easy and Actionable Strategies for 2022, which was to advertise to people on Quora. Presumably would have been Yahoo Answers before, but doesn't this seem pretty slimy? Like someone goes on Quora looking for help and instead they get an ad? Sort of like, good question. The answer is me. They'll also often tell you that their product cures a large swath of diseases and disorders, what's known as a panacea or a cure-all. As you may have heard from Sawbones,
our general rule is that cure-alls cure nothing. Right.
The reasoning behind this strategy is obvious. It's casting a wide net. Why just target some desperate people when you can target all of them? And on the subject of cures, cure is a word you should be very wary of.
Cure is not a commonly used word by doctors. In general, raise a red flag when someone throws that word around confidently.
It can be very attractive to be offered a cure to a disorder that is incurable. And think about this for a second. Selling someone a cure for something incurable. These people are bleeding the elderly dry in their dotage. These people are telling parents that they can cure their child's autism as if autism is something that can and should be cured, which we'll see can lead to some particularly sad and heinous child abuse. These people are convincing type 1 diabetics that somehow, despite there not being any other known cure, some stuff in a jar is really gonna do it for them. An echoing phrase in this propaganda is that Big Pharma is suppressing their natural cures. After all, why would a pharmaceutical company cure someone of type 1 diabetes when they could have a lifetime insulin customer? This almost sounds plausible, and unfortunately, it may be even true for some disorders, but it's not for type 1 diabetes or autism, and the answer to that potential problem won't be natural supplements. But the fact that it sounds plausible is a really depressing condemnation of healthcare under global capitalism, which leads to the most overtly sinister tactic: medical conspiracy theories. This is not to say that there aren't any legitimate conspiracies going on in the medical and pharmaceutical industry, for instance the overprescription of opioids, but this isn't that. Some examples from Jen Gunter writing for the New York Times: vaccines and autism, the dangers of water fluorination, bras and breast cancer, cell phones and brain cancer, heavy metal poisoning, AIDS as a construct of Big Pharma. The wellness industry needs conspiracies to keep them afloat because they need to steer you away from modern medicine. And it's not too hard because medical distrust runs deep for a good reason. I think it's important to note the reasons why people turn their backs on modern medicine in favor of wellness. You'll notice that the main targets of wellness advertising are often women. This is because marginalized groups have long been forsaken by medical research. Researchers have repeatedly failed to incorporate women into their studies, so we just know so much less about women's health than men's health. And researchers have actively harmed communities of color, such as in the well-known example of the Tuskegee syphilis study, or the fact that pharmaceutical companies patented their COVID vaccines, preventing poorer countries from vaccinating and causing needless deaths in already vulnerable areas. Women and people of color are systemically taken less seriously when they visit healthcare professionals. It's also important to note the ill intentions here. These companies aren't pushing for medical equality, they're not encouraging more representation in medicine, they are exploiting the fact that the medical establishment has failed so many people. Complaints of pain are a highlight of this issue. As in days gone by, women are far more likely than men to be prescribed sedatives for pain instead of analgesics. And white patients receive pain medication more often than black patients. White people also receive higher quality care in general, even adjusting for healthcare status. The Association of American Medical Colleges claims, quote, half of white medical trainees believe such myths as black people have thicker skin or less sensitive nerve endings than white people. It certainly doesn't help that America's healthcare system is a laughingstock, and all medicine in America is funneled through the filter of capital and profit, making healthcare unaffordable for basically everyone outside of employment. Suffice to say, it's understandable why some might distrust the medical field, so let's judge the companies and not the customers. Anyway, here are a few different categories of wellness and how they advertise. We'll start off with something easy, detoxification. We've all heard that one bearded weirdo telling us we have 20 pounds of toxic poop in our colons. Yeah, big surprise, it's not true. Constantly you see discussion online about toxins. Seldom you see anyone actually name any of these toxins. So let's talk about toxins for a sec. I was wondering, maybe you are too, what the fuck is a toxin actually? Well, it's a substance created by a plant or animal that is poisonous or harmful to human health. So these are usually some kind of disease-causing substances produced by certain bacteria, for example. According to Medline Plus, the word toxin can also refer to environmental metals and chemicals, but we'll be referring to those as toxicants in accordance with Pascal Imbaud of the University of Ottawa. Toxicants are things like PFAS, aka forever chemicals, dioxin, aka Dow Chemicals' gift to Vietnam and Saginaw, and all the stuff that Norfolk Southern carries during their kamikaze missions. The kinds of chemicals that, in the words of me, will outlive your grandkids. Now, both toxins and toxicants are everywhere and we're constantly exposed to them, but most toxins are fairly easy for the body to deal with, and most toxicants aren't going anywhere, as most are stored in our fat cells. So real quick, here's the scoop on how to combat toxins. Eat healthy. A plant-based diet is best for avoiding environmental toxicants. Moisturize your skin to protect from bacterial toxins, and moisturize your kidneys. Drink water. If your kidneys are healthy, then they don't need any help from Beardo over here. And for the fat-soluble forever chemicals, I guess the best we got is government regulations to reduce our exposure in the future. So basically, we're shit out of luck. And because we're shit out of luck, because we're all baptized in synthetic chemicals and microplastics, the wellness industry has an in. Yes, a symptom of industrialization, but more importantly, a cure to it. Better make a New Year's resolution to cut contact with yourself because you're toxic. The usual answer is a juice cleanse or an enema, things that seem like they would cleanse you if you were hanging out with Pliny the Elder. And a lot of this stuff is remnant of humorism. We'll get more into that later. None of this shit works. Juice cleanses and diets will often leave you malnourished, which makes it even harder for your body to flush toxins, and enemas will clear your GI tract out, but if improperly used, can cause tissue damage and infections. But I saw another sneaky little trick that I like. Some British scientists decided to call a bunch of wellness companies and grill them on their research in a paper called There Goes the Science Bit. A beauty spa called Champneys advertises a detox patch that removes, quote, harmful toxins including fatty acids. It's fat and it's an acid? That's like double bad! It's probably corroding through my body, making everything into fat! And that's exactly correct. Oh wait, no, it's not correct. But if you'd seen this, some of you might have believed it and gotten worried about the fatty acids that you have in your body. You know, the ones that are essential to life. Their representative said, though, about harmful chemicals like nicotine, that you can't get the toxins out any other way. Again, you're toxic and you need us. But here's the little tricky trick I like, because it's almost like an illusion. The detox patches come in the form of plaster pads that are stuck onto the bottom of the feet overnight. If you've seen Adam Ruins Everything, you might know what's coming. Because the thing is, it really seems to work. You go to bed, wake up, and you take the patches off and find a dark brown footprint. Those must be the toxins, you think. How did the toxins get in your feet? I don't know, gravity maybe? It doesn't matter, you can see it with your own eyes. The things are lousy with toxins now. Money well spent. Except the patches had wood vinegar on them, which is colorless when dry. You see where I'm going? While you were sleeping, your nasty feet were sweating a bunch, especially with no aeration. Well, that sweat soaked into the wood vinegar, which, when wet, is dark. It's like giving someone a hickey and claiming it's just your mouth bacteria coming off. Or, if you believe their representative on the phone, they put the wood vinegar in there because it has really tremendous toxin-absorbing qualities. And I guess they think feet can't sweat. Another pretty gross example of this comes from NutriDirect, who sells a parasite cleanse kit. It's not juice, but it's not good either. According to them, parasites are thought to infect around 85% of the world's population. Perfect. You now have a potential market of 6.7 billion people. And for each, a complete cleansing should be performed twice a year. But what's the cleanse? Well, it's 3 herbs. After being asked a few times about the parasites and how it works, a representative replied, "Well, have you looked on Wikipedia?" The only source that wasn't Wikipedia was a woman who'd been taken to court for practicing medicine without a license. If you're wondering what parasites this works on, it's all the ones on the Wikipedia list of parasites, including fictional ones. Strong herbs. Aside from being a huge waste of money, those probably aren't super harmful unless someone uses them instead of medicine. But some detoxifiers can be much more sinister, and they all tend to trend on Twitter. The worst example I've seen of this is Miracle Mineral Solution, which is a dilute bleaching agent that's sold as a detoxifier as well as a de-autismifier. It wreaks absolute havoc on the body, and it's recommended to parents to give to their kids. Keep in mind, some autistic kids don't know how to communicate that they're in pain, so their parents just keep poisoning them. Two mothers of autistic children infiltrated some wellness Facebook groups targeting autism and found them using turpentine and urine to cure autism. But Miracle Mineral Solution is the industry standard, so to speak. Mothers in these groups complain about their children making gasping noises, refusing to open their mouths. You know, because of all the poison. One Massachusetts mother lamented, "Have not been able to get 5-year-old to cooperate with enemas." If you're wondering who would start something like this, his name is Jim Humble. Quoting from NBC News, "It worked so well," Humble says in his book and on his website, "that he named himself the Archbishop of a new religion devoted to chlorine dioxide and branded it the Miracle Mineral Solution." Perhaps the most caustic and most disturbing, but not the only dangerous wellness fad. There's raw water for if you want to cosplay as someone from a country where you can't get clean water. The pitch here is that tap water and bottled water are neurotoxic because of the stuff we add to it to make it not kill us. As you'd expect, this is untrue. The chemicals we add are in such low concentrations they can't harm us. It's not like you're drinking straight shots of chlorine unless you follow Jim Humble's example. But if you're looking for giardia, raw water can be a good option. And then there's, dirt. For if you want to cosplay as a worm, I guess. All of these and a lot more products have been covered by Illuminati, so if you want to learn more about that, or if you've ever wondered what it would be like if a triangle was sad all the time, you can go watch her channel. Back on the topic of harmful chemicals like dioxin, PFAS, and vinyl chloride, what about monosodium glutamate? This shit is in our food. Go grab a thing of instant noodles, it'll be about halfway down the ingredients. People are outraged and the FDA refuses to do anything. Know why? Nutritional science has a bit of a checkered past, and a big reason for this is corporate fear-mongering. In the 70s, nutritional scientists were commissioned by Big Sugar to claim that fat is the enemy, and sugar can be a good alternative that isn't that unhealthy. We found out about the conspiracy, and now we know most fats are better for you than sugar, but fat-free sugary foods are still a mainstay at every supermarket. Also, the food pyramid you learned as a kid is bullshit. This whole eating thing we have to do, it's complicated. A particularly noteworthy case of nutritional fear-mongering is that of monosodium glutamate, better known as MSG. You know, the thing that makes everything taste better and is completely safe. We'd isolated the primary chemical for different taste sensations. NaCl for salty, sucrose for sweet, citric acid for sour, and some other thing for bitter. None of these things are particularly unhealthy unless you eat like a whole thing of salt and get hypernatremia, hyper meaning high, natrium for the Latin for sodium, as seen on the periodic table, and emia, meaning presence in blood. And then there's the fifth flavor, umami. The primary chemical responsible for it is MSG, and it's also safe to consume unless you do it by the handful. I don't want to get too far into it, but essentially, in 1968, some doctor felt sick at a Chinese restaurant, and that was enough to scare everybody off MSG for good. It was particularly easy because the American public was wary of the strange, scary, exotic cuisines. Chinese restaurant syndrome was a recognized disease in some medical circles, and I have a theory that the reason Chinese food made the LFO guy sick is because he grew up during the MSG scare. All of this has been disproven, but internalized racism is forever, and we still see health food companies virtue signaling about not using MSG, perpetuating the myth to a new generation. For instance, again pulling from There Goes the Science bit, Prêt-à-manger.
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 Prêt-à-manger. A health food type sandwich place in England claims to, quote, shun the obscure chemicals, and categorizes MSG among these chemicals, which they call nasties, along with some other artificial chemicals like sodium benzoate, which naturally occurs in apples, the first word of the alphabet. After going back and forth for a while with the scientists, Pret's bionutritionist finally gave up and said, that is the way the business was set up 20 years ago, and that is the way our founder wants it. To be perfectly honest, that is the reason behind it. There isn't a scientific reason at all. Beautiful. I guess there's also a place called the Co-op that removed MSG from their products, and get a load of this, quoting from Ramia Ali. The Co-op carried out a customer survey where, after telling customers of a possible link between MSG and food intolerance, asked how many customers were concerned. Unsurprisingly, most were. It's like telling someone that bananas might be poisonous and then asking if they'd be concerned about eating a banana. So all of these claims of health are bullshit. They're picking up the torch of fear-mongering, letting everyone know that MSG is bad, and they're one of the few places that doesn't use it. Now you need them, or you'll get sick and die from Chinese racism syndrome. Everyone knows that hormones are extremely uncomplicated, and you can easily influence them and they'll have exactly the effect you want. But did you know that everything wrong with you is caused by hormonal imbalance? Welcome to body hacking. Not the cool kind like cyberpunk augs or nootropics, the stupid kind, like thyroid juices or vitamin IVs. You know, for a community so obsessed with being all natural, they sure take a lot of vitamin supplements. In fact, Nestle claims that their vitamin B enriched yogurt optimizes the release of energy from our diet, which, as far as I can tell, means nothing. When asked if it would be helpful for people who already have enough B vitamins, a representative said, quote, well, if people have got enough B vitamins in their diet already, what it'll do, it'll optimize that. Well, optimize is a word that means something good. I'd love to optimize more stuff. What luck? The evidence?
Come on, it's Nestle. If you can't trust Nestle, who can you trust?
If you're eating a balanced diet, then you get all the vitamins you need, and naturally at that. If you're 100% sure you're not eating a balanced diet, like me, then a multivitamin might be worth looking into. It is not, however, a replacement for cancer treatment, as some would have you believe. These are the kinds of people who will first try to convince you that the reason you feel bad is because of a humor imbalance. You have to bring in more of the humors you're lacking and less of the humors you have in excess. Wait, sorry, I read that wrong. Hormones, not humor. Sorry, it's hard to tell because it's the exact same rhetoric. These people might as well have you taking black bile supplements. Of course, hormones can do a number on the body, only problem is that they're incredibly complicated and difficult to track. It's not just a matter of addition and subtraction. There are over 50 hormones that are interconnected in their methods of action, and we don't have tools to adequately monitor all of them. So we honestly don't know how to control a lot of them, and it's important for people to see a doctor or get a blood test before they jump to diagnosing themselves with hormonal imbalance. But wellness companies see this gap in understanding and fill it with pseudoscience. Fear-mongering, big words, repeat. But there are other types of wellness body hacking. For instance, the Good For You Corporation, or maybe the Good For You Corporation, has a product called aerobic oxygen, which is sort of like saying oxygen-y oxygen. I presume this is as opposed to anaerobic oxygen, which I guess would be ozone. Either way, aerobic oxygen is some kind of liquid that you drip into water, and then I guess the oxygen is absorbed into your blood through your stomach or intestines, and this is supposed to cure an apparent epidemic of oxygen deficiency caused by pollution. So I guess it's convenient that their customer base is anyone and everyone. I say some kind of liquid because I truly have no idea what it is, and neither does anyone else. The only things that they tell you is that it's very alkaline and that it kills all known pathogens, while somehow leaving harmless bacteria alone. In fact, one website says that the substance has no chemical formula, which would imply that it doesn't exist, or maybe that it's some sort of soup of free-floating subatomic particles and quarks. When asked what it does, a representative said it makes the water palatable. I think they meant potable, but apparently they even tried it with some water in Egypt and it worked. Except it didn't. The guy on the phone admitted he still got sick. Once again, fear-mongering, big words, repeat. Let's move on to the wildest and perhaps most expensive category of all, energy medicine. Now, you might be thinking, hey, my doctor prescribed me Adderall I didn't need. Isn't that something of an energy medicine? And to that I say, that's very fucking funny. This category usually takes an openly unscientific approach or just uses complicated sounding quackery. Things like no-touch massages or crystals. This requires the buyer to either disregard or reject commonly accepted science, so its main customer base is hippies or spiritualists or white Buddhists who have never read a single sermon, think Buddhists actually do this pose, and don't know the difference between the Buddha and Budai. It's like a more secular alternative to faith healing, kinda like The Exorcist if he was not religious, just spiritual. But for all this to work, they need to make you believe that your energy is wrong or imbalanced. So what does that mean? Honestly, it's very hard to say. Most of this is complete nonsense, so there obviously won't be a general consensus as everyone is trying to sell you something different. A lot of this is appealing to ancient wisdom. They love to appropriate concepts from Hinduism and Buddhism and completely misunderstand them. They love saying that, quote, science is finally catching up to what the ancients have known for thousands of years. They then go on to immediately discuss chakras. For those wondering, science has not, in fact, found any evidence for the existence of chakras. They just throw that in there to try and seem more legit. What probably happened is they overheard people talking about energy imbalance, which is when you either consume more calories than you expend, or vice versa. It's not chakra problems. But this particular brand of Western chauvinist commodified Hinduism posits that their, quote, energy balancing helps clear the blockages that may have occurred to our chakras. If you're interested in subscribing to this conceptualization of energy wellness, make sure to not actually convert to Hinduism or Buddhism, just take the stuff you like and replace religious practice with expensive gadgets and treatments. Quoting from Malika Khanna, in the hands of the wellness industry, Indian religious practices become a means to an end that simply perpetuates the neoliberal healthcare system instead of disrupting it. Then there's the scientific-sounding version of energy medicine, where your biofield, or the electromagnetic field created by the electrical impulses in your body, is somehow disturbed by the stressors of everyday life or by scary EMFs generated by modern technology. But don't worry, I got some cures for you.
Are you tired of all those negative emissions coming from your computer screen? Has your biofield been destabilized by EMF? Worry no more. For just £40, you could buy software that will emit 34,000 different homeopathic-type bioresonance patterns from your computer screen.
I didn't make any of that up. It's a program called Computer Clear, whose representative said that whether you feel them or not, there are negative emissions coming from your computer and hitting you. They go on to say that the software is, quote, capturing the pattern and presenting it to you, and the body decides whether it requires it or not. Well, I just hope they give refunds if my body decides I don't require it. The managing director said that the, quote, EMF remains the same, but the quality of the EMF from a human point of view changes. So it's not that all EMFs are bad, it's that you gotta turn bad EMFs into good, healthy EMFs, like looking at Medusa through a mirror. Think of it like a predatory version of a blue light filter, which some studies suggest are also devoid of any notable health benefits, but at least they're free and easy on the eyes. That's only for your computer though. How the hell are you gonna protect your biofield while you're out and about? It's not just EMFs that throw it off balance, you know? According to the makers of Q-Link, a pretty fitting name for 5G conspiracy type shit, worldly stress causes the biofield to become more chaotic and incoherent. Please help. My girlfriend broke up with me and now my biofield is becoming chaotic. I need to align it. I need to amplify it. I need to externalize it. A Q-Link, you say? How's it work? Oh, I get it. Crystals. Oh, but they vibrate. After it became clear that the company, Claris, had put a representative on the phone who didn't really know what the product was, they fell back on argumentum ad populum. This poor phone operator, I feel bad for him. Of course he doesn't know how it works. It doesn't work. Except maybe it does, because they've sold over 1 million of them. That's pretty much proof, or it at least rhymes with proof. After that comes the fun bit though, some good old esoteric pseudoscience. Physicist Eric Da Silva, who called Claris, pointed out that the FAQ says some stuff about, quote, converting energy fields from multiple dimensions and stuff like that. So presumably some of your researchers have discovered these multiple dimensions. I mean, surely that's a Nobel Prize on its own, isn't it? End quote. To which the representative replied, hold up. Multiple dimensions? Poor guy. Like I've said, the first step to sell anything I've mentioned is convincing you that there's something wrong with you and making you reliant on them for care. It's MVP, except instead of gaining attention or praise or love, they get your money and your words of mouth. Whew, that was pretty bad, but at least our beloved mainstream medicine would never do any of those things. Wait, hold on, what's this? What's this book from 2005 I just found from award-winning medical journalist Ray Moynihan on my coffee table? Oh, I must have left it there when I was reading about how our beloved mainstream medicine does the exact same things, with the admittedly notable difference that their medicine does often actually work if you are sick. But for the worried well, as Moynihan states, there's a lot of money to be made in telling healthy people they're sick. A guy called Henry Gadsden, chief executive for Merck 50 years ago, went full mask off and said his dream was to create drugs for healthy people, to have a market as wide as Wrigley's gum. I assume he then laughed maniacally with a cat in his lap as lightning struck behind him. Merck, if you didn't know, is a pharmaceutical company that's pretty big. Almost like a big, what's the word for when a pharmaceutical company is big? It's like big.
Let he who is without sin cast the first stone. After you whose last is doomed, he's the worst known. Gotta have your boom blown or eat a thirst bone. Rockets won't burst, clone, just don't curse the groan. Own his own microphone, bring it everywhere he go, so he can bring it to you live in stereo. Panic, can't understand it, ban it. The underhanded ran it, planned it, and left him stranded. The best, any who profess will be remanded. Yes sir, request permission to be candid, granted. I don't think we can handle a style so rancid. He flipped it like Madden, did the old jazz standard.